Hey, welcome back guys to Law of Creation. Today we're tackling the analogy of Paley's Watchmaker analogy. I'm David. This is Nebula, the physics cat. She's going to help us out in unpacking what we mean by turning Paley's Watchmaker analogy inside out. So we're going to look at it from a new perspective. Today we do have a law of creation. It is physics-based. I didn't make it all up. It's built on things that other physicists have done. And we even have a formula and a model to show you how we get this creative intelligence of the universe to create not only the watch ultimately, but us and everything in between. How do we get the building blocks of life from that primordial ooze or that primordial soup into the original protocells or precursors of life, and then ultimately life and LUCA, our longest universal common ancestor, that evolves eventually into us. But there's still some debate as to how those original building blocks of amino acids and molecules and atoms, let's say, turn into what we might call life eventually. And that's what this channel is all about. So Nebula here, she wasn't always a large, cute physics cat. She was once a tiny little cute physics cat. And she's all about ODC, Optimally Dissipative Configuration. Like if she's looking for a place to lie down, she'll find a nice sunlit spot on the floor because it's more efficient. And that's how eventually photosynthesis actually had a similar attraction of using that sun's energy in a useful form, which is also an optimally dissipative configuration, which has to do with utilizing the natural gradients that exist when given the opportunity of the materials and the constraints of the system. Entropy naturally gravitates towards the optimally dissipative configuration. And what that looks like for humans is when we invent something, let's say there's an island over there that has resources on it, we want to build a bridge. And we don't just build any bridge, we build the most efficiently designed bridge that'll get the most resources with the least amount of energy. And that's that common thread that we find throughout the universe that will unite the watch, the watchmaker, which is made and invented by the planet Earth ultimately. And we do have a model for this. So what do you say we go to the board and maybe start looking into how all of that works? So welcome to my new channel. Some days we talk about gradients, some days we talk about the origin of life. Some days we talk about how Nebula is a perfectly designed ODC machine, and it is getting a little chilly here. So how do we reconcile the watch and the watchmaker without feeling like we need to invent or have a belief system that tells a story, which is fine and good. It's actually required and necessary for civilizations to evolve, to have common belief systems within the population in order to become more, dissipative, more able to survive. But I was always looking for a universal truth, a thread that links our intelligence with that of the universe. And what we have in the law of creation is the mechanism by which those initial amino acids and atoms and molecules in that primordial soup became those first structures. And it's a universal law of creation that also applies to not only building the planet Earth, but the living things on the planet Earth, and ultimately the watch, that famous watch or airliner that we want to try to explain how it got here from a physics point of view without having to introduce our own human-centered story, if you will. And here's how it goes in a nutshell. So the final configuration, whether it's us or the watch, is going to be whatever produces the most entropy within the constraints of the system. The universe naturally picks the argument of the maximum. That's a physics term, which means it selects, it chooses, and that's where we start seeing the intelligence. It always, always, always picks the configuration that's optimal. And what that looks like for humans, let's say it's important for our survival to keep track of the time and to have calendars and watches. We naturally come up with a timepiece that's very intricately designed because it supports us. And you might be asking, well, okay, but then how does a human support the universe? And again, it took 4 billion years, but what happens is that life and life in general, including us humans, are actually able to harness energy from all those gradients that are within the Earth itself better than if we were not here. And maybe that's a lot to take in on the first day. That's why I have a whole channel dedicated to it. But that's the trick that we're able to, life in general and the precursors of life, were able to harness the energy of that primordial ooze, those vents in the center of the ocean there, are able to grasp the potential energy better than the other thing that wasn't life or us. And currently, at the time of this video, there's probably only a handful of people on the whole planet that already know this and that might be able to grasp that, oh yeah, everything around kind of makes sense in that sense. Like, why was this dinosaur created here? Why were the original dinosaurs created here? And it's for the exact same reason. So to note, then when we start to see this almost alive formula for how we and the watch got here, we start to see human-like qualities out of physics, out of just a formula, because indeed the argument of the maximum is the choice of all the mixing around that happens with the molecules and the amino acids of the origins of life. This is where all those molecules and atoms are learning, they're experimenting, they're adapting to each other because they're optimally dissipative within the constraints of the system. So let's move along to our, what I call the Atomizer, and we're going to press this button here. So what this is, I call it the Atomizer, and it's meant to demonstrate how chaos is not actually random, but when you do have all of these different atoms and molecules together, they're given some kind of a force or a charge, they will automatically always configure themselves into the optimally dissipative configuration. Today, we're going to make a brand new molecule or configuration of atoms that's never, ever been seen before, because this quickly becomes such a randomized selection and it's never been done before. But what's sure is that there will be a final configuration. So that's, sometimes we get confused at the order of things. So because we see a human or a watch, we might say, oh my God, that's impossible. How did such an intricate thing get constructed? And as we're about to see, a configuration had to happen, and it had to be optimally dissipative configuration, but it wasn't predetermined. And that's a big point to get across. So let's see what happens if we turn this thing on for a few seconds. You see right now they're mostly random, and some of these ping pong balls do have magnets on them, which is going to make that potential able to make new structure. Then we get configurations like this, which we couldn't have tried to build that if we wanted to and come up with that. And that's an important aspect to learn, because that's a similar thing with the human, and the watch couldn't have been, let's say, years before, or decades or centuries or millions of years, predicted that that would be the optimally dissipative configuration, because there's so many parameters involved. You might have heard of the butterfly effect, where some very tiny variation over here that over time is just to expand a lot further. So how this relates back to Paley's watchmaker analogy is that, yes, the human built the watch, and guess what? The Earth built the human. And in the same way, the solar system, or when the sun was doing its thing, it created the Earth. Each one an optimally dissipative configuration beneath the previous. None of them were meant to occur any more than these special molecules that we made here, and yet here they are, because something had to happen, and that thing had to be the optimally dissipative configuration. And this is how we get the creative intelligence of the universe in our perspective, and this is how also we're not so separate from the universe. So often we think that humans and their intelligence, like we're over here, and then the rest of the universe is on a different scale. But no, we're actually following exactly what the universe wanted us to do, and I don't want to say merely, but we're beautifully another element of the universe that's doing exactly what the watch is doing, and whatever made our star was doing also. So this channel is pretty new. We'll touch on this subject again and again. Well, thanks for joining us on this video. We'll do a lot more of these. Also, Nebula's here to remind us that we've got a set of 10 illustrated entropy books that we put together, and I'll probably read these on the channel also. And this actually talks about entropy's inventions being the same as humans' inventions, and how that's all linked together. So that's available at Amazon. And from me and Nebula, we will see you next time.